Shalom and welcome to Jerusalem Studio. The Israeli Air Force, acting on information supplied by military intelligence and the Israel Security Agency, or Shin Bet, struck the Qatar-based Hamas leadership earlier this afternoon, targeting most of the high-level members of the terrorist organization's chain of command and negotiating team. The strike was coordinated with the Trump administration and U.S. Central Command. What are the probable repercussions? Who will make decisions for Hamas, and will they ultimately, including the ranks of course, obey file? What might happen to the Israeli hostages, and could the Gaza War end sooner or later? Joining us to dissect these questions and much more, Brigadier General in Reserve Yossi Kuperwasser, who formerly served as the Israeli Ministry of Strategic Affairs Director General, as well as the head of the IDF Intelligence Directorate's Research and Assessment Division, currently the president of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. It's great to see you, General.
Pleasure.
Also joining us from elsewhere in central Israel this time is our TV7 editor-at-large, Mr. Amir Oren. It's a pleasure seeing you as well, Amir.
Thank you.
And if I may immediately ask you, Mr. Oren, to give us some insight. We must highlight we are recording immediately after the strike with some details still obscure, but nonetheless we will provide insight to the various ins and outs of this event as it's developing. Mr. Oren, go ahead.
So Doha, the capital of Qatar, is approximately 1,000 miles, some 1,700 plus kilometers from Jerusalem or the air bases. And the Israeli Air Force has had a lot of experience over the last 2 years, flying to Yemen, flying to Iran, and other points in the Middle East. So obviously, it was not a very complicated or sophisticated operation, except for very timely intelligence, knowing when most of the leaders of Hamas would be at a certain place on a certain time. However, what we don't know right now is what impact it will have on the continuation of the Gaza War. President Trump warned Hamas only a couple of days ago that he has given them his last offer, which is also a warning. Take it or else. And this is the else, but we don't know what happens with the so-called internal mechanism of Hamas within Gaza. Will they now be more extreme or more responsive to the American-Israeli formula that Qatar, if Qatar is still considered a mediator, and Egypt will give them? This remains to be seen. And what will happen to the hostages? Now, the Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson calls this operation Summit of Fire.
Thank you, Mr. Oren. General Kuperwasser, naturally, this is a monumental event of potentially tectonic implications, not only with regard to the situation in the Gaza Strip, but also on a broader regional scale. Naturally, Israel is still engaged in a multi-front war, and at a time when the Trump administration, particularly President Donald Trump, came out and, like Mr. Oren just mentioned, voiced his final offer, the Islamist Hamas did not necessarily take him seriously. They started saying, we can't necessarily release all of the hostages on day one, and we can't do this, and we can't do that. And President Trump essentially started to air some frustration over Hamas dragging its feet, and frustration translated now into action by Israel.
Well, to a large extent, you're right. It's I think this was coming, and Israel proved that it's ready to take action against Hamas leaders outside of Gaza, in all kinds of places that they consider to be safe havens. First, we took Saleh Harouri in Beirut. This was towards the beginning of the war. And then we moved to Ismail Haniya in Tehran. And finally, now the rest of the leadership in Qatar. And this is coming through on a promise made by the Israeli leadership right after the 7th of October attack, that we shall not hesitate to take care and to eliminate the leadership of Hamas. And we should remember that these people that were targeted now are the same people that were celebrating the 7th of October in the evening of the 7th of October in Qatar, in a hotel in Qatar, and airing their celebration so that everybody will see them jubilating. We said right then that there's going to be a price attached to this behavior, and it's too early to say to what extent the attack was successful or not. But if it was successful, the price was charged, and that's very important to everybody to understand that you cannot carry out an attack like the 2nd of October and stay safe. Especially this is true of Khalil al-Haya, who was the deputy of Yahya Sinwar and was on a mission to coordinate the 7th of October attacks together with Nasrallah and the Iranians. So he was privy to the attack plan. I'm not sure this is the case with the rest of the leadership. They were in favor of the attack, but they didn't necessarily knew about the exact timing of it. And whereas Chaya did know about it. So he was the most important target. And anyhow, he was playing now the role of the leader of Hamas, being a part of the Hamas leadership in Gaza and the Hamas leadership outside of Gaza at the same time. So he played a very important role, and it's good that he's out. How this is going to affect the Hamas decision-making process, it's again too early to say. Anyhow, the main decision-making process was done inside the Gaza, or within the Gaza leadership that al-Haya was part of. The rest of the leadership was much less important in recent months. So I think that this is not necessarily going to change, but the considerations of the leadership in Gaza is going to change, because on the one hand, the immediate response is going to be probably the need to take revenge and things like that. But once they wake up, they will understand that Israel is determined to finish what it has started and to remove Hamas from power in Gaza. And the fact that we destroyed all kinds of high-rising buildings in Gaza in preparation for the ground operation is again a manifestation of this determination of the Israelis. And they have to take this into account. I hope the way Israel handled the leadership of Hamas outside of Gaza is going to convince Hamas leadership inside Gaza that the best thing for them is to take the Trump's offer and accept it and release the hostages and enter some sort of negotiations about how exactly they're going to lay down their arms so that Gaza will be able to stay less destroyed than what it might be if the military ground operation is going to be carried out.
Yeah, it's very interesting to also make here some type of correlation, since this specific targeted elimination occurred merely one day after Israel allegedly struck a radar system in the area of Homs to include other surface-to-air capabilities, potentially even just clearing the route in order to launch this decisive strike against these murderous individuals of the Islamist Hamas, of course, an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. But Mr. Owen, when we're talking about messaging, how does this resound within the landscape of the Middle East and also within Hamas itself? We do hear about a lot of pressure when we're talking about Hamas's leadership, not only the one that just was eliminated, but those in Gaza are projecting a lot of fatigue.
So the first message, both you and General Kuperwasser already mentioned, and that was President Trump's. And this is the second time following Iran when he set a deadline. The deadline was ignored, and the next day Israel struck Iran. And what Trump has essentially been saying to everyone, not only in the Middle East, is don't mess with me. I mean what I say. And here, the offer, which was received but not accepted by Hamas a few days ago, included a discussion of amnesty to the leaders, these very leaders who kept their silence and now will probably keep their silence forever if they did not survive. So this is one level of messaging by President Trump, who has allied himself with Israel. The other level, the specific Israeli one, to those holding the hostages, is listen, your organization is disintegrating. Yes, you can go on fighting as a guerrilla force or a terrorist network. And only yesterday, of course, 4 Israeli soldiers were killed in such an attack. But eventually, we will get each and every one of you. So you had better cut your deal with us, Israel, now, and safeguard and then release the hostages.
Indeed. Well, with regard to the Islamist Hamas and the United States, it's not that President Trump necessarily allied with Israel. Naturally, Israel and the United States are allies in a bond that is classified as ironclad time and again. But nonetheless, when we're talking about the Islamist Hamas and the atrocities committed on October 7th, we're talking also about 33 American citizens who were butchered brutally by this terrorist organization, and 12 American citizens that were taken hostage, including 2 bodies of American citizens who are yet to be retrieved from Hamas captivity in the Gaza Strip. This is also a very strong lever within the halls of power of Washington, taking into account those facts when dealing with this really heinous terror organization. But General Kuperwasser, who is the leader who ultimately will now take the reins? Naturally, when we're talking about the field commanders, the commander in Gaza City, the Gaza Brigade commander is the most senior one with the most experience also operating against Israel. But nonetheless, there seems to be a disconnect right now of the political echelon that doesn't have many left other than the ones staying in Turkey.
Well, I don't think that Hamas has a manual of what to do if something like that happens. And first of all, we have to see who exactly was eliminated and who managed to survive. But I think the decision-making process now relies heavily on what Izzeddin Haddad, the commander of the Gaza Brigade, is going to say, because he holds the key to the decision of whether to lay down their arms or not. This is the person who is in charge of that, and I think that this is going to be the very difficult task for him, because he used to be able to communicate with others and discuss the matter. Now he might have difficulties in finding with whom to discuss these issues. He's a tough nut to crack, and he's a very resilient person. He used to cover himself with hostages at a certain point of time. It's difficult to say how he's going to react to what has happened.
General Kuperwasser, Izzeddin al-Haddad used to be regarded as more pragmatic than his predecessors.
He comes originally from Fatah. Yes, he used to be seen as more pragmatic, but after 2 years of war, pragmatism is shaken and eroded. We'll have to see if he's going to show some of his well-known pragmatism, then might be ready to spare his life and spare the lives of many more of his people, and spare the city of Gaza from destruction, and accept the offer put forward by President Trump. I hope that's going to be his decision. But we cannot build on that, and we have to put more and more pressure on him until he gets to the point where he understands that this is what he has to do.
Absolutely.
If I may follow up on that, Jonathan.
Go ahead, Mr. Owen. Yeah.
General Kuperwasser doubted that there was a succession plan for Hamas for such a contingency, and this is quite true. If you go back to the Second World War, before Hitler committed suicide, he conferred authority on Admiral Dönitz, and Admiral Dönitz decided to give up. He surrendered to the Allies, and the German armed forces followed through because they were still organized and they obeyed orders. A similar event took place in Japan when the emperor ordered the government and the military to surrender following Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This is not going to happen when you have, let's say, 20,000 armed men hiding in tunnels, perhaps not even in touch with any superior officer other than their direct supervisor. It will be very hard to tell them to give up, even if it means that their lives will be spared. So it will obviously take time, and there will be mopping up firefights. Perhaps eventually it will be beneficial, but in the interim, one must be quite concerned with the fate of the hostages.
Well, basing on your own analogy, let's not forget also that the final contingency of the German war machine during World War II, particularly in Groningen, continued to fight for several months afterwards until they were actually convinced that Hitler did indeed commit suicide and that the surrender was not just a ploy by the enemy, but rather a truthful statement. And the same goes for the Japanese in some of those islands, unwilling to surrender in light of this, of course, lack of communications. But nonetheless, when leadership comes to terms with what was necessary and understands that they have been defeated, things followed suit. But nonetheless, General Kuperwasser, we are on the brink of a very intensive or high-intensity offensive against the Islamist Hamas in Gaza City. Some IDF assessments of the intelligence directorate indicate that there are roughly 10,000 terror operatives expected to flood to southern Gaza as part of the evacuation of the civilians, while a relatively small contingent of this terrorist organization will remain and fight, with the headquarters, of course, being under hospitals and other civilian infrastructure. What are the core goals of the current offensive in Gaza City, other than the resounding statement that it will make to this terrorist organization, alongside the hopes that we all share to see at least some, if not all, of the hostages retrieved?
Well, I think the first goal of the operation is to remove Hamas from power. And for that, you have to weaken it as much as possible and take over the territory. If they're not going to surrender before this is going to happen, then we need to take over the territory. And once you control the territory underground, Hamas is not in power anymore. The people that are going to stay in Gaza City are not going to be under Hamas rule. They're going to be under Israeli rule for a temporary period of time. And that's the number one goal, together with the hope of releasing the hostages as part of the new situations that will prevail in Gaza City. That's the goal of that. Yes, some of the Hamas operatives may go out of the city and move to the southern part where we provide the civilians with safer conditions where they can get medicine and food and anything they need. And some terrorists may take advantage of that in order to move with the civilians. They just have to take off their clothing, their uniforms and move south. Most of them don't have a uniform anyhow, so it's not such a big issue. And that's something that we shall have to continue dealing with after we remove Hamas from power. It's not going to be the end of the terrorism in the Gaza City or in the Gaza Strip. The terrorism in Gaza Strip is going to continue even after we remove Hamas from power. We have to at least be prepared for such an eventuality. And there's high probability that it's going to be the case. Because not only because of what Amir said before, that not everybody is really going to take this decision of surrendering to the real order, but also because they are not necessarily going to surrender. We are going to take over the territory without their surrendering, the official surrendering. We should just assume responsibility for these areas, even if they are still underground in their tunnels, and we should look for them in their tunnels and try to kill them or apprehend them, as many as we can. That's going to be the case. In the meanwhile, I'm afraid that the infrastructure of Gaza City is going to be suffering quite heavily, because once you explode those tunnels, much of what's on top of them is destroyed as well. And if they're going to use all kinds of houses for planting booby traps and things like that, then these are going to be exploding as well. A lot of damage is going to take place in Gaza City once we enter that. And this is going to last for, if they don't surrender and do it in a properly ordered manner, then it might take several months before this is over.
We very much hope that Gaza City, at least the civilians there, can be spared from what Hamas has continued to bring them.
The military has ordered today, issued an order today for the civilians to leave the town and to leave the city and move south.
Indeed. We're hearing reports that Hamas is indeed vigorously trying to block the movement of civilians to the southern part of the enclave, to include also, naturally, the patients in some of those hospitals that are continuing to be crowded by people with different types of issues, and it seems like Hamas is quite vigorous, and it's expected also to increase this pressure, physically speaking, on the civilian population to block their retreat. We are drawing near to the end of the program, and I'd like to give both of you a fair amount, roughly 2 minutes each, on what are we to expect in this period of time, of course, taking into account that Hamas can succumb at any given moment to the demands by the Trump administration that remain on the table. Hamas can right now lay down its arms, release the hostages, and agree to the terms and conditions set upon it, and this whole saga, so to speak, will go away. But nonetheless, Mr. Owen, go ahead.
So there are two dimensions here, one of substance and the other of face saving, or the battle over the narrative. It will be very difficult for whoever remains a leader of Hamas, or who will now be elevated to a leadership position, to justify what has happened over the last 2 years if they are now waving a white flag. So they will try to find some formula. It will not be like the one floated at the beginning of this war, exiling Arafat-like in Beirut in 1982, because there are no Arafats left for Hamas. All of them are apparently gone, and only mid-level and lower officials or decision makers are left. It will be quite difficult. But diplomats and sometimes intelligence officers can come up with clever formula.
Indeed. General Kuperwasser?
Well, first of all, we'll have to see how they react to the attack, because it's really too early to say what's going to happen. I just hope that they will listen to reason and understand that it's high time for them to change course, but they might just go in the opposite direction altogether and threaten the safety of the hostages and so on and so forth. That's also a possibility. We have to be prepared for all of these eventualities, and I believe that the first reaction of the Hamas would be to take it revenge. That's how they operate when things like that happen. And so I don't think that they're going to succumb to this pressure that put on them immediately. They have to keep some pride in what they're doing, and this is difficult to give up after such an attack. And on top of that, the question now is even bigger: how this 7th of October is going to be remembered in the history of the Palestinians. It already cost Hamas so much, and Sinwar and death, and Huri and Ruhi Mushtaha and many others, other Sinwar and many others. Now the rest of the leadership in the outside of Gaza has paid the price too. So I hope this, regardless of what Hamas decides right now to do, I hope this is going to help us enshrine the 7th of October in the history of the Palestinians as a faux pas. You don't do this kind of things. And this is very important. In this respect, this attack was very important.
Absolutely. Well, this is all the time we have for today. Naturally, in the context of the discussion, and something that we have been noting since October 7th, 2023, there is no scenario in which the Islamist Hamas will emerge victorious out of the battlefield. And this is ultimately also the reality that's going to happen. But they just need to figure that out, and it will take them some time to do so. But nonetheless, in the process, we will have to continue and to monitor and to report on all the various developments. I'd like to immediately thank General Kuperwasser and Mr. Oren for all of your insights, and I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. Until our next edition, from here in Jerusalem, Shalom.